Tyrannosaurus Rex was not invincible. For all its power, all its terrifying presence in the fossil record, this apex predator had weaknesses that could be exploited. 6 prehistoric creatures possessed what it took to bring down a fully grown T-Rex. Understanding how requires us to first grasp what made this monster so dangerous in the first place. An adult T-Rex from the late Cretaceous period, roughly 68 to 66 million years ago, weighed between 15,000 and 20,000 pounds. 40 feet of bone-crushing predator standing 13 feet tall. Its skull alone accounted for nearly a third of its body length, housing jaws capable of generating bite forces strong enough to pulverize thick bone. Most predators tear flesh. T-Rex shattered skeletons. This allowed it to consume parts of prey other carnivores simply couldn't access, an evolutionary advantage that made every kill more valuable. But here's where the design gets interesting. Those famously tiny arms, they weren't useless, but they were severely limited in function. T-Rex couldn't grapple with struggling prey, couldn't hold anything down for an extended fight. Its entire hunting strategy depended on one perfectly executed moment. Approach, bite, done. If that sequence broke down, if prey fought back effectively or the situation deviated from the expected pattern, the advantage evaporated fast. This wasn't a flaw unique to T-Rex, it was the inevitable trade-off of its particular evolutionary path. Maximum bite force required maximum skull mass. That mass needed support. Something had to give, and what gave was versatility. So when we talk about creatures capable of killing T-Rex, we're really talking about animals that could disrupt that single decisive moment or force the predator into scenarios it wasn't built to handle. The first creature that accomplished this had no fangs, no predatory instincts whatsoever. It was a herbivore, slow-moving and seemingly passive. Yet Ankylosaurus may have been one of the most dangerous animals T-Rex ever encountered. Why? Because it weaponized defense in a way that turned hunters into victims. Ankylosaurus shared the same late Cretaceous North American landscape as T-Rex. They knew each other well. Encounters happened regularly across millions of years. A full-grown Ankylosaurus stretched 23 feet long and weighed over 7,000 pounds. Its entire back, sides and neck were covered in thick, bony plates fused directly to the skin. Biological armor with no obvious weak points. For a predator that relied on bite force, this was problematic. Powerful jaws mean nothing when there's nowhere soft to bite. But the armor was just the beginning. The tail was where things got lethal. That tail ended in a massive club formed from fused bone segments reinforced by incredibly strong tendons. Scientists studying its structure discovered it wasn't just a lump of bone. It was engineered like a medieval mace with a dense, striking head and a rigid shaft created by locked vertebrae. This design concentrated muscular force at the base while delivering devastating power at the far end. A single strike could generate impacts forceful enough to crush bone. Not break. Crush. Ankylosaurus could also rotate its body to add rotational velocity to the swing. The result was a weapon that posed a very specific, very serious threat to T-Rex. Here's why that mattered. A T-Rex could survive many injuries, torn flesh, broken ribs, even lost teeth. But there was one thing it absolutely couldn't lose and continue functioning: the ability to stand. T-Rex was bipedal. Its entire body weight rested on 2 legs. Every aspect of hunting, from stalking to attacking to finishing prey, required those legs to work perfectly. Damage one leg severely enough and the hunting ability disappeared. A blow from an Ankylosaurus tail club could crack or shatter the shin bone, could destroy the knee joint. For a 9-ton animal, that was catastrophic. The T-Rex might not die immediately. It could retreat, escape the immediate danger, but from that point forward, its fate was essentially sealed. It couldn't chase agile herbivores anymore, couldn't approach dangerous prey without risking collapse. In the brutal world of the Cretaceous, that helplessness led to starvation and death. This isn't speculation. Fossil evidence supports it. Ankylosaurus fossils show damage to their tail clubs consistent with high-impact strikes. Meanwhile, fossils of predatory dinosaurs from the same period display leg fractures matching the force an Ankylosaurus could produce. The encounters happened, the injuries were real. For large predators, failure doesn't always look like immediate death. Sometimes it's simply losing the ability to fulfill your ecological role. That's exactly how a slow, heavily armoured herbivore could kill the most fearsome predator that ever walked on land. If Ankylosaurus represented a slow, grinding threat, the next animal was something entirely different. Direct, aggressive, built specifically to stand and fight rather than flee. Across the entire Cretaceous world, no species was more familiar to T-Rex or more capable of killing it than Triceratops. These two weren't occasional encounters. They shared the same ecosystems in North America during the final years of the Cretaceous. Meetings between them were routine parts of prehistoric life. Triceratops was massive, weighing between 13,000 and 26,000 pounds, with a low, powerfully stable stance. But size wasn't what made it remarkable. It was the deliberate design for confronting large predators. Those three long horns weren't decorative. They were dense bone reinforced by powerful neck muscles, allowing Triceratops to charge with tremendous force. Behind them rose a massive, bony shield protecting the neck and shoulders, the exact areas most predators targeted. This transformed Triceratops into a mobile fortress. More importantly, it allowed Triceratops to make a choice most herbivores couldn't. It could choose not to run. Running is sensible for many prey animals. But Triceratops wasn't evolved for speed. It evolved to hold ground, face threats head-on, and counterattack. High-risk strategy, but devastatingly effective against predators that relied on decisive strikes. Scientists have found T-Rex fossils with severe injuries, puncture wounds, fractures, deep trauma to ribs, shoulders, even skulls. These injuries match perfectly with Triceratops' horn impacts. Those T-Rex individuals didn't survive long enough for wounds to heal. Triceratops killed them. In direct confrontation, T-Rex faced an impossible equation. It couldn't reach the neck from the front because of that shield. Closing distance meant accepting the risk of impalement, trying to circle around. Triceratops could pivot surprisingly fast given its low center of gravity, always keeping its weapons pointed at the threat. The relationship between these two created a fragile balance. T-Rex could kill Triceratops. That happened. But Triceratops could also kill T-Rex, and evidence for that is equally clear. This was one of the rare relationships where the apex predator couldn't treat its opponent as easy prey. Every encounter was a gamble where either could lose. But every threat so far came from animals T-Rex knew, had evolved alongside, had millions of years to adapt to. What happens when you remove that familiarity, when you place T-Rex in an entirely different world? The answer stretches across thousands of miles to South America, where the rules changed completely. This was the domain of Giganotosaurus, a predator that lived roughly 99 to 97 million years ago, nearly 30 million years before T-Rex even existed. In raw dimensions, Giganotosaurus rivaled the Tyrant King, lengths exceeding 43 feet, weights between 15,000 and 17,000 pounds, longer than T-Rex, though slightly lighter, with a more slender frame and narrower skull. But size tells only part of the story. The real difference lay in hunting philosophy. T-Rex embodied explosive power, bone-crushing jaws delivering catastrophic damage in seconds. One decisive strike, one killing moment. Giganotosaurus operated differently. Its teeth were long, thin, razor-sharp, blades instead of crushing instruments. Not designed to pulverize bone, but to slice, to open arteries, to cause devastating blood loss over time. This wasn't about immediate kills. This was about attrition. The most critical distinction: Giganotosaurus likely hunted in packs. Pack hunting among large carnivorous dinosaurs remains debated, but evidence keeps mounting. Multiple Giganotosaurus fossils found together in the same locations. The presence of absolutely massive herbivores like Argentinosaurus weighing over 60 tons, prey too large for any single predator to tackle alone. The ecological math suggests cooperation wasn't optional. It was survival. Picture this scenario: an adult T-Rex somehow transported into Giganotosaurus territory. Instead of one opponent, it faces multiple sets of eyes tracking from different angles. The pack doesn't charge immediately. They circle, keeping distance, forcing T-Rex to pivot constantly. Every time the tyrant focuses on one threat, another strikes from behind or the side. Quick slash, immediate withdrawal. No commitment to prolonged combat. No killing blow arrives, just repeated cuts, steady blood loss, relentless pressure. T-Rex might land a devastating bite, might even kill one attacker. But while that happens, the others continue their assault. Energy drains with each passing moment. Blood loss compounds. Focus deteriorates. This style of combat represents everything T-Rex wasn't built to handle. That massive body, high center of gravity, dependence on stability, all became liabilities when forced into constant rotation. Meanwhile, Giganotosaurus possessed longer, more flexible frames capable of sustaining extended pressure without exhaustion. Eventually, T-Rex collapses, not from a fatal wound, but from accumulated damage and exhaustion. The lesson here cuts deeper than individual strength. Evolution produces specialists, not universal champions. T-Rex dominated its environment perfectly, but coordination and strategy can dismantle even the most powerful solitary hunter. Each ecosystem creates its own rules, its own optimal predators. Now shift environments entirely. Every confrontation so far happened on solid ground. Armored defenders, charging herbivores, pack hunters, all terrestrial threats. But one place existed where T-Rex advantages vanished completely: water. At the boundary between land and rivers, between familiar hunting grounds and alien territory, a different predator ruled. Spinosaurus, living in North Africa during the mid-Cretaceous in a world of vast rivers, sprawling wetlands, complex, semi-aquatic ecosystems. Spinosaurus exceeded T-Rex in overall size, lengths surpassing 46 feet, weights potentially reaching 22,000 pounds. But dimensions weren't what made it dangerous to the tyrant king. For decades, scientists misunderstood Spinosaurus as merely an odd terrestrial predator with unusual features. That massive dorsal sail, the elongated snout. Strange, but still fundamentally land-based. Recent discoveries demolished that interpretation completely. Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic, adapted for swimming, for underwater movement, for hunting in rivers and lakes. Its tail stretched long and flattened laterally, forming a paddle structure generating powerful thrust while swimming. Hind legs proportionally shorter than typical predatory dinosaurs, indicating land speed wasn't the priority. That distinctive snout held conical teeth perfect for gripping slippery prey like massive fish. Every anatomical detail pointed toward water dominance. Spinosaurus didn't need to confront T-Rex on equal footing. Draw the encounter into water and power dynamics reversed instantly. Imagine T-Rex approaching a riverbank, maybe pursuing prey, maybe searching for water. Steps into water deeper than anticipated. Ground beneath becomes slick, unstable. That 9-ton body transforms from advantage to liability in seconds. T-Rex wasn't evolved for swimming. Massive frame, high center of gravity, leg structure completely unsuited for aquatic propulsion. Stability vanishes rapidly. Each movement becomes labored, difficult to control. That's when Spinosaurus emerges. In deep water, T-Rex loses everything that made it apex. Can't plant feet firmly for powerful bites, can't turn with necessary speed, can't leverage weight effectively. Forced to face a predator operating in its element, where every advantage belongs to the opponent. Death wouldn't come from direct combat necessarily. Panic, exhaustion, loss of control. A struggling T-Rex expending massive energy, just staying upright while Spinosaurus maneuvers effortlessly. The tyrant might retreat to shallow water, might escape entirely. But the encounter proves a fundamental truth. Power remains context-dependent. Environment determines capability as much as anatomy. On land, T-Rex remained one of history's most formidable predators. In water, those same attributes became fatal weaknesses. Spinosaurus didn't need superior strength. just home field advantage. This principle extends beyond hypothetical confrontations. It reveals how specialization creates both dominance and vulnerability. T-Rex evolved perfectly for late Cretaceous North American plains. Dryland, large terrestrial herbivores, ecosystem dynamics favoring ambush predators with devastating bite force. Transport that same animal into wetlands and specialization becomes limitation. The prehistoric world contained no universal solutions. No single design dominated everywhere. Each environment selected for different traits, different strategies, different forms of power. What worked in one context failed catastrophically in another. Understanding this transforms how we view these ancient animals, not as simple monsters or cartoon villains, but as finely tuned products of specific evolutionary pressures. T-Rex wasn't invincible. Nothing was. Every advantage carried corresponding weaknesses. Every specialization created blind spots. The most dangerous opponents weren't necessarily the strongest or fastest. Sometimes the deadliest threat came from fighting on unfamiliar ground, facing strategies your evolution never prepared you for, encountering advantages you had no counter against. That's what made the Cretaceous world so complex, so dangerous, so endlessly fascinating. Not just the size of predators or fierceness of combat, but the intricate web of adaptations, counter-adaptations, environmental pressures, and evolutionary trade-offs that determined who lived and who died. But terrestrial predators and semi-aquatic hunters represent only part of the equation. Some creatures pose threats through entirely different means. Not speed, not weaponry, pure mass. Creatures so monumentally large that conventional predation became irrelevant. Enter Patagotitan, a herbivore from late Cretaceous South America that redefined what size meant for terrestrial life, length exceeding 120 feet. Weight estimates ranging from 132,000 to over 154,000 pounds. This wasn't a dinosaur. This was geology with a pulse. Biological mass moving slowly, nearly impossible to stop through conventional means. Place T-Rex beside Patagotitan and familiar metrics collapse. An adult tyrannosaur weighing roughly 18,000 pounds stands before something 8 times heavier. The disparity transcends simple measurement. It becomes categorical difference. Medium-sized predator meeting living mountain. This gap extends through every anatomical detail. Legs thick as tree trunks, supporting pressure that would crush lesser structures. Skin layered thick over muscle masses measured in tons. The bite that represented T-Rex's ultimate weapon. Against Patagotitan, merely shallow wounds, insufficient to weaken a creature with blood volume exceeding entire smaller dinosaurs. T-Rex evolved targeting prey within reasonable size parameters. Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, animals possessing clear vulnerabilities despite impressive bulk. Critical points where precise strikes delivered swift conclusions. Patagotitan possessed no such weaknesses. No exposed throat, no skull within practical reach, no obvious target for solitary predation. Imagine the scenario mechanically. T-Rex approaches Patagotitan, predatory instincts driving the encounter, cannot target the neck. Rises too high beyond sustainable attack position, cannot reach the head without maintaining postures T-Rex's anatomy wasn't T-designed for. Only option? Attack the legs, but unlike smaller herbivores, these legs weren't vulnerability. They were biological pillars wrapped in dense muscle, tough skin, engineered for supporting unimaginable weight. A T-Rex bite might cause injury, might draw blood. Wouldn't compromise mobility quickly enough to matter. Time became the critical factor. Large predators must kill prey rapidly. Exhaustion, injury risk, energy expenditure all demand swift conclusions. With Patagotitan, speed didn't exist. Every attack attempt required remaining dangerously close to something whose mass exceeded your own eightfold. And Patagotitan didn't need predatory retaliation. Careless tail swing, single misplaced step, simply continuing forward momentum. Any could cause catastrophic injuries to a tyrannosaur positioned too near. The threat wasn't aggression. It was proximity to something operating on entirely different physical scales. A predator unable to finish prey faces starvation, forced withdrawal, acknowledgement that some targets exceed capability regardless of strength. In extreme scenarios, when hunger overrode caution, consequences escalated dramatically. Single kick from those massive legs, being knocked down beneath prey's weight. Broken bones, irreparable damage. For predators depending entirely on mobility, such injuries guaranteed slow death. But individual size represented only partial threat. Social structure completed the equation. Patagotitan likely moved in herds like most giant sauropods, groups forming living fortresses where space itself became dominated by massive bodies. T-Rex wandering into Patagotitan herds driven by desperation or miscalculation faced inevitable death. Not through active defense, through mathematical certainty. Nowhere to move without collision risk. Nowhere to attack without exposure. Nowhere to retreat once surrounded. Patagotitan represented different power tier entirely, not predator, not warrior, yet creature forcing even largest hunt. Heirs toward avoidance. Its existence established clear boundaries on tyrannosaur dominance. But South America harbored something potentially more massive still. Argentinosaurus, considered among largest land animals in Earth's history. Fossils incomplete, yet conservative estimates suggest lengths reaching 115 to 131 feet. Weight ranging from 154,000 to nearly 200,000 pounds. Not merely giant herbivore. Biological structure approaching absolute limits of terrestrial life. Placing T-Rex beside Argentinosaurus makes comparisons meaningless. Despite being apex predator across North America, Tyrannosaur appears diminutive next to something building-sized. Difference transcends length or mass, becomes fundamental nature. Argentinosaurus didn't evolve for evasion or conventional defense. Entire survival strategy built upon single principle, becoming too large for predation. Skin stretched over muscle layers measured in tons. Bones not just massive but extraordinarily dense, supporting weight that challenged physical possibility. Each step wasn't mere movement. It was mass shift sufficient for shaking surrounding ground. In that context, T-Rex approaching as predator faced absurdity. Couldn't target neck. Rose beyond reach entirely. Couldn't access skull without positions anatomically unsustainable. Only theoretical option remained attacking legs. But these weren't weaknesses. Biological columns wrapped in muscle density and skin thickness that rendered bite damage negligible in practical timeframes. Large predators require rapid kills. Argentinosaurus made rapid impossible. Every attack demanded remaining perilously close to something whose mass exceeded yours tenfold. Social behavior amplified danger exponentially. Herds creating zones where tyrannosaurs simply couldn't operate. Space completely dominated by bodies too large for navigation. These giants represented evolutionary endpoints. Maximum size achievable under Cretaceous conditions. They didn't defeat predators through combat. They transcended predation entirely through scale. This reveals something profound about prehistoric ecosystems. Power existed in multiple dimensions. Raw strength, yes, but also defensive capability, environmental adaptation, cooperative behavior, and ultimately pure mass. Each created different survival strategies, different ecological niches, different forms of dominance. T-Rex optimized for its environment. Late Cretaceous North America, where prey ranged from medium to large but remained within practical hunting parameters. Transport that same predator to South American sauropod territories, and optimization became a limitation. The tyrannosaur that dominated northern ecosystems found itself outmatched not by superior predators, but by prey, too massive for its hunting strategy. This pattern repeats throughout natural history. Specialists excel within their context, struggle outside it. No universal solution exists. No single design dominates everywhere. Each environment selects for different traits, rewards different strategies, creates different champions. Understanding this transforms how we view these animals, not as simple monsters ranked by power levels, but as finely tuned products of specific evolutionary pressures. T-Rex wasn't invincible because invincibility doesn't exist in nature. Every advantage carries corresponding vulnerability. Every specialization creates blind spots. The most dangerous opponents aren't always strongest. Sometimes deadliest threats come from fighting on wrong terrain, facing strategies your evolution never prepared you for, encountering advantages you possess no counter against. That complexity makes the Cretaceous endlessly fascinating. Not just size of creatures or fierceness of combat, but intricate web of adaptations, counter-adaptations, environmental pressures and evolutionary trade-offs determining survival. By examining T-Rex's limits, we don't diminish its legend. We understand why it became legendary while recognizing that even legends have boundaries. That's where science becomes truly compelling, where prehistoric world becomes most vivid. When we stop seeing simple monsters and start recognizing the sophisticated biological machines evolution created, each perfectly adapted for its world, each vulnerable outside that world, each part of ecosystems far more complex than any individual creature within them. No creature dominated absolutely. 6 different threats, 6 different ways to bring down what we call the king of dinosaurs. Armored defenders, charging herbivores, pack hunters, semi-aquatic specialists, giants too massive for conventional predation. Each exploited specific vulnerabilities in T-Rex's design, proving that in nature, context determines everything. Power means nothing outside the environment that shaped it.